You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
We are the Madmen of Masculinity.
Your home for healthy masculinity. We're just real men having real conversations for you. Good morning, Madmen Mafia.
Good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you are. You know what the deal is.
Whatever time of day it is for you.
You know what I'm saying? You know what time it is. Food. I am Kirk M. Samuels.
And I am Jason B. Kendrick.
And we are the Madmen of Masculinity.
That's right. We're just real men having real conversations.
For who?
For you.
For you, boo.
Right here on your home for healthy masculinity.
That's right.
You know, we're kind of one of the only bands in town with healthy masculinity as our banner here.
Dude, I've never heard of another radio platform. I mean, everybody and their grandmama got a podcast.
Yes.
And we post these on podcasts too, by the way. Check us out, madmenradio.com. But I never heard of like a mass media production. And this is a mass media communications production that is male-centric from a positivity perspective. We don't sit around here complaining, whining, none of that kind of stuff. We just get real.
No, I mean, it's kind of ironic that that's going to be our intro into victim mentality, because most of what we do is take ownership. Let's talk about taking ownership, how to take your power back, how not to project on other people, how not to use judgment and negativity towards other people, how to generate positivity and gratitude and appreciation in your life. And so tonight we're talking about victim mentality.
Victim mentality.
You don't know nothing about that, do you, sir? Never
stop picking on me, man.
Never felt like a victim.
Stop picking on me.
You're the only one here. You're the only one I can pick on.
You know I got sensitivity issues, man. Everybody, everybody picks on me, man.
See, already
everybody picks on me, man.
Already,
everybody picks on me. Nobody likes me, man.
That's a good example. I like that.
Is it?
It's a good example of victim mentality.
That was my illustration. I wanted to do a little opening illustration.
So, have you ever felt that way?
Yep. I have, dude.
It's true. I felt that way this weekend for a minute, and then I had to do something about it.
Tell us about that.
Well, you know, we all have our thing.
What's your thing?
For me, really, my thing is like not being taken seriously, not being understood, being taken out of context, being projected on, and people judging. So, like when I'm attempting to be magnanimous and have a hard conversation and acknowledge somebody's point of view, and then they come back like just putting it back on me, like it's all my fault, and not taking the time to understand or even attempting to say, okay, well, I don't agree, but you know, you're welcome to your thing. They're just like, no, you're wrong. You're toxic. It's like, or I think my favorite line was, you know, men are left-brained and just don't get emotional intelligence or something to that effect. And I was just like, really?
Break yourself, fool.
Yeah. But anyway,
yeah,
that was just kind of, I had to process that, because I'm like, I thought we were having, you know, I thought this was like a back and forth conversation, sharing our opinions and things like that. And then the responses I kept getting were all just kind of, you're just proving my point. You don't know what you're talking about. You're negative. You're dumb, whatever. And then of course that just, you know, we have our triggers. I was triggered. I'm like, man, this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I had to process that, deal with that, because I was just like, that kind of came out left field for me, because I thought this lady's cool. This is gonna be a great meeting and whatnot. I was even thinking about having her on the show, and now I'm like, maybe not.
You know, Myers-Briggs, INFP. I'm an ENFP. I'm
INFJ.
I'm a feeler.
Yeah.
I'm a high feeler too, as a matter of fact. I kind of max out on all the E's, the N's, the F's, and the P's. And so I'm a high feeler, and I got to make sure that a lot of times I don't let my feelings get in the way of the truth. And maybe that's a man thing. I think it is a man thing. I think a lot of what we do, we almost have to not let our feelings get in the way of the facts or the reality or whatever it is. We don't get to just, you know, when everything's hitting the fan, you know, when everything's collapsing and crumbling around us, we don't get to just cry and sit, and when the boogeyman's chasing us, we don't get to fall and just lay there in the middle of the cemetery that he's chasing us through and just cry. No, boogeyman's gonna get me. We don't get to do that.
No.
And so yeah, but I always got to make sure that my feelings though don't get too far ahead of the bigger picture of the reality and all that kind of stuff. And part of that is letting my feelings get me into victimville.
Yeah. Actually, I was watching something before we came in today, and just TikToking and watching reels and whatnot. And one of them, the guy said that our job, I mean, it might have even been Andrew Tate, so of course, take it for what it's worth, but he said our job as men is to be the emotional balancer, or to have, to be kind of the emotional stoic, because that's not the lady's job. Her job is to be run by her emotions, to feel her emotions so that she can do the things that we can't do. And then we are supposed to be the emotional balancer. So we're like, we have the emotional stability, and you're right. So we have to develop that. And I think that's kind of why we're raised the way we're raised. Part of that suck it up mentality or training is don't allow your emotions to take you too far. And we know guys like that. You see these guys who are too hot-headed and let their anger run them, and then they end up getting in trouble, starting fights and all those things. So having a little bit of stoicism is a good thing. But when you get into that victim mentality, then it becomes so negative so quickly. It's a very slippery slope.
When guys get too far into their feelings, that's when at some point they snap, and at some point they break, and that's a lot of times when you see these mass casualties, because it is pretty much every time a male that let some circumstance or some situation in his life, whether it's real or perceived, get ahead of the reality of morality of what's right and wrong, and decide I'm going to take it out on everybody. And that being said, I just had this conversation with my son like a week ago or last week or something like that. But it's okay to cry. Mm-hmm. It is okay to let that stuff out, to let those feelings out. It's okay to express those emotions. Expressing emotions is different than following your feelings. Two totally different things. And so us as men, we got to be safe and comfortable with expressing emotion when it's appropriate, because we do it when our team scores. Mm-hmm. When our team scores a goal or a 3-pointer at the buzzer or a touchdown, it's okay to express our emotions when it's appropriate, but it's not okay to follow our feelings down the path of what normally leads to destruction. And that's because our feelings ultimately will put us in the position to make ourselves really believe that we are victims to whatever circumstance, and we don't have any sort of say so. We don't have a choice. We don't have everything, and everything hates me, and everything is about me, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the last time I hit somebody in anger was actually in the military. It was my best friend, and he was drunk, and I just lost it, saw red, and literally don't remember hitting him. And, he can claim victim or whatnot, or I could claim victim because I saw red. But during that whole situation, at any point, I could have taken myself out of it. Like, okay, hey, I'm losing it here, or I'm losing my temper, but it just happened so fast. But that's what happens to guys. We have that threshold, and then, once that glass ceiling breaks, that's it. It just explodes. And so having healthy outlets, having, if you do martial arts, or you go to the gym, or something, go to one of those, whether it's the break rooms or whatever, where you can break stuff with bats and hammers, something like that. We have to have those outlets so that we can release those negative emotions and not get into victimhood, because I think a lot of times when we don't have a healthy way of releasing those emotions or dealing with them, processing them, they turn around on us. And then you get into a lot of the depressive, activities of drinking and drugs and self-isolation and doing all these things that are unhealthy for ourselves, because it turns back and starts to eat us when we don't have a healthy way to deal with those emotions or to release them. We tend to allow it to turn around, and it's becomes almost like cancer. It just turns around and starts eating us. And so you got to have those healthy ways to acknowledge and deal with whatever it is coming up for you.
And I hope we can remember to circle back on this at the end here, because I feel like in the beginning we already kind of hit the landing zone. I think we hit the LZ kind of in the beginning of all of this, meaning having a healthy outlet for what is the result of the victim mentality, which is a destructive path that our feelings can take us down. Because when we get caught in the victim, the victim's journey, that victim's journey can really take over, and it can really kind of distort what the truth is, what reality is. It can distort what people said to what we thought they said or what they meant, and it just gets us off track, and so when we start off down that road, man, it's not a good end journey. But like I said, I mean, I think I think ultimately the solution is finding the outlet, a healthy space for all that.
Yeah, and then just you have a great point. We kind of went all the way to the end, and then let's circle back. But a victim mentality really is when you believe you are a victim of outer circumstances, when you don't take responsibility of your emotions, your reactions, your responses, and believe that this is happening. It's like it's jokes, but it's not. It's like, look what you're making me do to you. Like, well, that's a victim mentality. Like, you're not taking ownership of your response, your feelings, your anger, your emotions, whatever it is. And so part of why we do the show is because it helps us to remember for ourselves to take responsibility, to take those count to 10, take 10 deep breaths, whatever it is, and take responsibility for how we're processing. Because unless somebody's physically grabbing you, nobody's doing anything to you. You're all doing it to yourself. Your mind's doing it to you, your hormones, your emotions, whatever it is just running that tape in your head saying, oh, poor you poor victim. And here's why you're a victim, because daddy didn't love you and mommy wasn't there and whatever else. And that's why having therapy, having some sort of outlet, something like that is healthy, because when those tapes run and it just says, oh, poor you, poor victim. I mean, I heard this too. And I think it's great. Both the hero and the villain had the same backstory. They both had trauma. They both had pain in their lives. But the villain said, oh, somebody hurt me, so I'm going to hurt the world. And the hero says, oh, somebody hurt me. Now I want to make sure nobody else gets hurt. So how do you decide to turn those traumas and those pains into power? How do you decide to use those to a beneficial way? Well, the first step is to get out of a victim mindset. Stop thinking that something outside of yourself is making you be a certain way.
I think it's great that we actually started off and we gave kind of a little snippet of the journey that looks like we're going to go on over the next couple segments here, because you got the after school detention crew out there that they just want to dip in and see what's going on and all that. So we hit you right up front. This is where we're going with this thing. And if you know anybody who can relate to that lives with the victim mentality, see if you can relate to everything we're about to talk about here over the next few minutes, over the next few segments of this thing. And maybe it's you. Maybe sometimes you need to look in the mirror and say, okay, is this the way I live? Is this the way I process the world around me? And and maybe see if there's something you can learn from this. So yeah, I think it's cool that we just kind of dip in and right up front, like, here's where we're about to go. Now, how are we going to unpack this thing? Here's all our luggage that we pick up off the carousel number 12. But now we're gonna go home and unpack all this stuff and figure it all out. So let's do that. We're gonna take a break. Mad Men of Masculinity, KLDC 12:20 a.m. in the Mile High City. Boom. See how I landed right on 13? Did you see that? Boom. Dude, I'm for real, man. I'm lethal with this thing, man.
I'm glad you're paying attention.
I'm lethal with this thing, man. Because when you're coming in for a landing, it's not only you got to be lined up on the center of the runway, but you got to have your speed right. You know what I'm saying? You got to be able to touch down right on the dashes.
You got to have your flaps out. You got to have.
So it's stay skilled to just land right on the 13. You know what I'm saying? If all you chumps out there, you go back and you look at your timer, it was right on 13 to the side. Mm-hmm. All right, boom.
Whatever makes you happy, man.
Yeah, whatever makes you. I'm just
you gotta. It's little victories, man. So you gotta pat yourself on the back. That's a good way to do it. Yes, we are back.
Yep.
This is the Mad Men Show.
Mad Men of Masculinity on KLDC 1220 AM in the Mile High City of Denver, Colorado, home of the soon-to-be, hopefully, two-time NBA champion.
Let's hope.
Denver Nuggets.
We'll take another parade.
Hey, the Avalanche may even have a shot. If they kind of get their act together a little bit here, and we'll see. Broncos had a pretty good draft. We got another sports team in town that plays, down at 20th and Blake. Yeah.
They playing too.
They playing. They trying real hard. They're trying real hard. We're gonna get it together, man. We're gonna get it together.
And we also have the other football team, and then we have the lacrosse team, and then we got everything.
There's not a lot of major cities that have all the major sports.
Yeah.
I mean, LA is just getting football back in the last few years, and so don't sleep on Denver. Don't sleep on Denver. We got a great airport. You can get most places in one flight. We got all the sports. We got, a lot of activity. Things close kind of early around here, though. I'm from back east where things be open late. Late movie out here might be like 9 o'clock or something.
No, you gotta be downtown or where all the people are, because sometimes they go later. But yeah, I mean, we got it's soon to be the biggest airport in the world. Is like the biggest.
It's the biggest landmass airport. It's the size of Manhattan.
Yeah.
They say there's enough land to double everything that's there now. All the runways, the terminals, and all that kind of stuff, man. So
yeah, I was there for work the other day, and they're already digging out stuff for the next terminals. And
the conspiracy theories and all that, right?
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You know what I'm looking forward to is when the day when there's like a tour of the underground tunnels and stuff. Like there's gonna come a day where they're like, oh yeah, that all that stuff was true, and here's a tour of the conspiracy theory tunnels. I think why not?
They got the gargoyles out there. They got the little time capsule from the New World Airport Authority or whatever. You got
the Masons on the stamp on the thing.
You got Lucifer out front of the airport, man. Don't sleep on Denver though, man. Denver was a cool town, man. Denver was a cool town. Very vanilla.
Yeah.
Ain't a whole lot of chocolate chips on the cookie.
No.
But everybody's cool. Everybody's chill. A lot of people from California. The cool people from Texas. It's a pretty cool joint, man. So anyhow,
well, it's funny to me because I always thought it was a cold, but it's not the cold.
It's not. It's
dude. I mean, Chicago. Yeah. I mean, Minnesota. I mean, Buffalo, New York. I mean, those towns got lots of flavor, but here it's.
We got more sun than Florida.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Coach Prime doing his thing up at CU. You know what I'm saying, man? There's a lot happening up in this bad boy, man. Y'all, if you're not in Denver, if you're not in Colorado, you should check us out.
Or not because it's getting crowded over here. So
and a lot of people don't like it because it is getting crowded.
It is getting crowded. It's hard to find a house. Everything's getting expensive. Hey, I sound like a victim all of a sudden.
You kind of do.
I kind of sound like a victim.
You kind of sound like a victim.
Colorado's fault.
It's all the people that keep coming here buying all the houses and they're overpaying, and now I can't afford to buy a house.
They be eating all my In-N-Out burger. They be eating all my Church's fried chicken.
It's all their fault.
It's all their fault.
What makes a victim mentality? What makes a victim?
Basically, someone who takes no personal responsibility, no accountability, and projects out their problems somewhere else, which, as we know, especially as men, because we get trained in this most of our lives, hopefully, is that it's your responsibility. And so whatever is happening to you is your responsibility. That includes how you feel and what's going on. So if you feel like a victim because of outside circumstances, then there's something you need to change. And that's one thing we get taught as men. I'm starting to see less and less of that being taught to men, and definitely for the ladies. I see the younger generation now. It's like accountability, responsibility. It's always somebody else's fault. And that really leads to a victim mentality because you can do nothing about something happening outside of you. You can only do about yourself. And if you don't do about yourself, then it's always gonna be somebody else's fault. And you're always gonna be a victim, out of power, and pretty much out of control.
It's hard for a lot of people to look at their life and to see their hand in the recipe for a lot of what happened in there. There's a lot of things in your life you didn't have anything to do with. A lot of things in your life you didn't control. A lot of things in your life you just happened to you in terms of, I know it happened for you, not to you. I know that whole thing. I'm talking about there are a lot of things in your childhood that you don't deserve. A lot of things, in your biological family, they dysfunctional, and mine put the fun in dysfunction, right? So there's a lot of that going on. But at some point in life, a lot of your circumstances you had something to do with. Yeah. And it's hard for a lot of people to see that. They want to just point the finger at their ex, point the finger at the ex before that and the ex before that, and they forget the fact that they are the common factor in every broken relationship they ever had.
Yeah, you were actually the common denominator in all of your life events. And I'll even push back a little bit. You may not have had anything to do with and making no choices in what happened in your childhood, but it's disempowering to say I can't do anything about that.
Facts.
You need to, at some point, and that's the whole point of my first two books, was look at your life through a point of choice. What if? I mean, I'm not saying you did, but what if you did? I mean, if you can look at it through a point of choice, say, maybe I chose to have those parents because of that experience. Maybe I chose to be born and raised where I was to have those experiences because, you did. So what are you going to do with it? And just by even playing with the idea that maybe I chose it at some level, maybe me and God are up there like, okay, you're an eternal spiritual being. What kind of mess can we get into and see what we can get out of? I mean, you think, well, if this is a simulation or whatever, a lot of the quantum physics simulation theory, If this is like a video game and a simulation, well, what are simulations for? Therefore, trying out different things, knowing that you're safe on the other side, and that this is something that you kind of put together. So if you can think about maybe your life that way and going, hey, maybe I chose to have all this dysfunction because I was a little big headed on the other side. Like I can handle that. And now you go, okay, well, what do I do with that? How do I take what I experienced and turn it into something positive?
I spent the better part of 4 decades blaming my father for every problem that I had in my life. My father, who died 27, 28 years ago, I spent most of my adulthood blaming him for my divorces, for my addictions, for all kinds of stuff, man. I blame that dude. That dude been dead and gone for a long time, man. And at some point, I had to realize that that he he didn't have nothing to do with any of the stuff I was consuming that made me an addict. He didn't have nothing to do with me choosing the type of women that I would choose in my life. He didn't have nothing to do with none of that. He had some impact and some effect, but at the same time, I can't live my life being a victim to my father wound. And how many of us, we're 6 weeks away from Father's Day. How many of us need to stop being a victim to our father's choices and our father's actions? At some point, we got to put down all of that and move forward. We got to put down that dead body instead of carrying that dead body on our back and move forward with the fact that, you know what? Okay, I'm going to forgive this person, even if they did. I'm going to forgive them. And whether I tell them or not, I'm going to forgive them and I'm going to take responsibility for my choices and I'm going to stop putting all of that on them. I need to be responsible. I need to own it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's basically the perfect example of what most men's victim mentality is. Because dad is a perfect scapegoat, especially when he's not here. He can't do nothing about it. You can't yell at him no more, but he did all this to me, and that means that is why I'm this way. Well, that's just a cop-out because you are that way because maybe there was some influence, but you made those choices. We all make those choices, whether it's conscious, subconscious, whatever. And at some point, if you don't like those choices, you got to change. And it's not easy, but the first thing is look at me and go, it's me.
Yeah.
I have to take accountability. It's not dad's fault anymore. He's not even here. So if I want to change, I want to change me. If I want to take my power back, I've got to drop the victim mentality and take ownership. And that's the biggest thing I see nowadays is that nobody's really willing to take ownership or accountability. And so it's all projection and judgment. And you get all whether you're extreme left, extreme right, or extreme in the center, you just see people pointing fingers and projecting instead of going, hey, maybe I had some part to play in this. Maybe my emotions and my reactions are my responsibility. Because honestly, your only other choice is to change the entire world to make you feel better, which is what most people try to do. But that's insanity.
I have the same name as my father, generally speaking. And I always saw that as a curse that was just hanging over my head. And it wasn't until I realized that I am the version of that name that was established in 1973. I'm not the one that was established in 1950. And at this point, when he died, he was 5 years younger than what I am now. When he died, he was 5 years younger than what I am now.
You go listen to
so
that
I'm a grown man, older than he was. How I look now, sitting back, pointing fingers at him, somebody that is 5 years younger than me, for all of my problems and choices and mistakes. And ironically, to even some of the point you were making, the experience that I had with him as my father has equipped me to be a father to my son now. My son now, who has a lot of the same, and we adopted my son, but he happens to have a lot of the same baggage with his biological father. And he has a lot of the same, there's a whole lot of parallels that go back and forth, but he and I are able to talk and interact and connect on certain levels that I wouldn't be able to interact and talk and connect with him on had I not had the experience I did with my father. And so hindsight being 2020, there are times when I am thankful, and more is 51, at least 51% of the time, I am thankful for the story that included him in my life that made me who I am today. Because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be where I am, doing what I'm doing. And like I said, I would not even be able to have the same relationship with my son that I happen to have at this point in my life.
Well, and that's what happens when you take accountability, drop the victim mentality, and you own what happened to you and take the beauty out of it, take the lessons out of it. And then, because nobody wants to hear from somebody that doesn't have any experience. They don't, if somebody's struggling with addiction or trauma or something like that, they don't want to hear from somebody who didn't have any of those experiences. They want to hear from somebody who's been through it, been through the fire, came out the other side, dusted themselves off, and got back up on their feet. And so that's why dropping the victim mentality, looking at your life through a point of choice and seeing, why did I have these experiences? Well, I don't know, but I had these experiences. What can I take away from it to further my life, to better society, to help somebody else?
I got to the point where I realized, man, that I need to, I need to not only stop blaming my father, I need to stop blaming my mother for whatever. I need to stop blaming my brother. I need to stop blaming my other brother. I need to stop blaming my half sister. I mean, I need to stop blaming just in general. Because that is so disempowering as a person. That's disempowering as a man to put one side or blame, I guess you could say, for my actions and choices and my perspectives and my viewpoint of the world on other people that had nothing to do with 99% of the choices that I've made in my life as an adult.
Yeah, when we do that, we disempower ourselves, and it's a really easy cop out because you can do nothing about those people that you're blaming. You can't change them. You can't make them do something different, and they didn't really have any impetus or any real effect on you doing what you're doing anyway. So you're basically just going, it's a cop out, and it's part of victim mentality. It's part of that circle where it's like, well, I can't do anything about it because it's their fault. Well, it's your life, it's your mind, it's your body. You're the one in it. Maybe it's up to you to change it. And speaking of changing,
let's change
to a break.
Let's change to a break.
We shall be right back. Mad Men of Masculinity, right here on KLDC.
Well, what's up, people's watching us now? And then we on a break. You know what I'm saying? We, as y'all know, we live stream the recording of our radio show. So we are absolutely recording, but we are still live. And so right now we're kind of in a break and we just shooting the breeze.
Speaking of shooting a breeze, I think I'm going to drop one of these in there. Barry Overton.
Hello, Colorado. I'm Barry Overton, your innovative real estate broker, where your goals are my top priority. In this ever-evolving market, it's crucial to have a guide who not only understands the ins and outs of real estate, but also thinks ahead and ensures you're always one step forward. With over 3 decades of expertise and commitment to leveraging cutting-edge strategies, I am dedicated to providing unparalleled service. My approach is simple: knowledge, innovation, and a steadfast dedication to your best interest. So whether you're buying or selling, I can help you navigate the real estate complexities with ease. I'm Barry Overton, transforming dreams into addresses, one home at a time. Call me today at 303-668-5433.
Yes, we're back.
We are back.
It is that time again.
Shout out to by the way, shout out to our sponsors,
yes,
man. I mean, golly, man, we got people who believe in what we're doing such that they're going to stand behind us and they're going to support this through their businesses. They're going to support healthy masculinity. You know, when men are like the tide, and when the tide comes in, all boats rise. You know, stronger men, better world kind of stuff. And that's why we do what we do. And so, man, shout out to all of our sponsors, man. You should check them out, man. They're just good folks. If nothing else, reach out to them and tell them you heard that they sponsor and thank them for sponsoring.
Yeah, these people are putting their money where their mouth is. They're literally sponsoring us and helping us. And I mean, Castle Rock Men's Health. Is it Castle Rock Men's Health or is it Castle Rock Hormone Health now?
I don't know. I think they changed it.
They may be changing to hormone health because it's not just about men; it's about ladies too.
Yeah.
Barry Overton, real estate extraordinaire, EXP
He
Real
is
Estate.
him.
He is him.
He is him in real estate, especially in Denver, Colorado area. He is absolutely him. He took somebody's unsellable house and got it sold, man. He is doing his fizzle thing, man. That's the dude.
And then last but not least, especially because they keep helping us out, Pro Auto Care.
Auto Care.
That's where we take our vehicles.
The Ramos family.
The Ramos family.
Love them all, man.
They're so full of integrity. I mean, how many times every time something goes wrong with your car, you're so worried about, I'm going to get robbed.
Yeah.
And how many times we go over there and they're like, you can do that. You can do this. Here's your list of all the things we can do. What do you want to get done? I mean, it's all about you and their family. So, I mean, it's all love over there. I never
felt so comfortable paying that size of a bill. I never felt so comfortable writing that check over or giving my debit card over to to a business because, man, it's just the way they do business here in Denver, man. They do it right.
And they work with you, and they definitely don't make you feel like a victim over at Pro Auto Care.
No
victim mentality over there.
No
you feel like, okay, they earn their money. I'm gonna pay their money because I feel good about this whole process.
Show to the now. Victims, man. Victims. Now, how do we handle victims around us? I mean, what's your thoughts on that, man? What do we do with the victims in our world in terms of the people in our circles, whether it's family, friends, co-workers, maybe a spouse? I don't know. Like, you know, what do we do with the victims around us?
Well, I'm gonna start at the end because I know what ultimately happens, and we talked about it before. 33% of men nowadays are not even getting into relationships because they don't want to deal with it. And that, I think, in some ways, like you had even pointed out, is kind of a victim mentality because they're just like, I'm just gonna check out, take my ball, and go home. But at some point, you got to go. The juice ain't worth the squeeze. I'm out. But before that, you've got to put in the effort. You got to be like, okay, can you take responsibility? Well, I'm going to take responsibility for myself. Maybe I'll take some nonviolent communication classes so I can learn how to communicate more effectively and not project on you. And I think the best way is to model the behavior of accountability, of taking responsibility to the other person, to hopefully at that point they'll go, hey, I see you taking responsibility. Maybe I should as well. However, if you are dating a narcissist and you do that, well, they will eat you up like candy because that's narcissist fuel. Oh, he's taking responsibility. Now I don't have to take responsibility for nothing, which I'm not going to anyway. So there you go. But I think, yeah, you got to put in some effort. You got to be the example, be the change you want to see in the world. And if that doesn't work, then you usually only have a couple options, you know, check out or suck it up.
I would like to challenge men.
Yes, please.
If you're on the dating market,
it's hard out there, boys.
It's hard out there in them streets, man. It's hard out there in them streets. I don't want to hear guys complain about women when you have an addiction that you haven't addressed. I don't want to hear guys complaining about women when you're looking for a feminine woman, but you want one without emotion. I don't want to hear guys complain about their wife who looks to them for everything when you want a woman to be a follower in your home and to be somewhat submissive and allow you to lead. Do you want the smoke or not? Do you want the lead to lead or not? Do you want to be a leader? Do you want to be the masculine man? Do you want, you know, what is it that you want? And if you want those things, you got to be prepared for what comes with that. It can be very frustrating when everybody's looking to you for everything. It can be very frustrating and sometimes tiring when it's like, man, I got to solve everybody's problem for real. It can be draining. And then at the same time, you got to sit back and say, but I'm not a victim in this. I'm the man in this scenario. I'm the husband in this scenario. This is who I'm called to be. This is why I'm called to be in this relationship or to be in this setting. And so in this moment, I choose to challenge us as men. And I'm challenging myself on a daily basis with the same thing. Like, wait a minute, you asked for this smoke. You know, you stood on a sandy shore in Negril, Jamaica, and you made a promise to her and God that you was going to do X, Y, and Z. So guess what, brother? You in this thing. You don't get to just whine and complain about X. You don't get to do that. And so, and I can say the same things to women. I can say all those kind of same things. Right now, I'm choosing to speak to guys in terms of us leveling up and us making sure that we are not the first victim in whatever the scenario is in the dynamic with women in our lives.
Yeah, we want to make sure we're not the first victim because then we'll be creating more victims. We want to make sure that we honor our choices. That's the responsibility of men. That's the honor of men, is saying, I chose. Now, here's one big thing, and this is where we usually don't learn until later on, is that we need to make better choices most of the time.
Boom.
But once you make those better choices, you got to stick with them.
Boom.
And I think a lot of times, and I'll even say, I'll hold my hand up, there are times where for those of us who want to make better choices, want to work on ourselves, there comes a point where you got to actually take a stand and say, I'm joining the fight, I'm getting in the water. But if you wait too long, it becomes a very lonely path, because I think a lot of the reasons why so many men are choosing out, yeah, it's hard out there. Ladies they're being more masculine. They're not being as feminine. They're being told that they don't need a man and whatnot. So maybe they're not as easy to deal with, but having better choices, meaning taking the time to vet, to find a woman who values the same things you value, the same core values, because that's what you really need for a long-term stable relationship, is to have the same core values, have similar, you don't have to have all the same interests, but things, that you kind of like to do together. So you have some stuff to do together, but just make better choices, guys. We tend to get booty blind and only see the butt and don't even ask her what, her favorite this is or favorite that is. And then we wake up one day going, why do I owe this lady all this money? Because we didn't make very good choices.
Bruh, you talking to me, man. When I had to rent, dude, I paid child support a collective 20, I'm going to say like 21, 22 years.
Ouch.
I mean, over two different, through two different divorces, dude, I paid, and I can't blame nobody but myself, because I chose those scenarios, man. And not only did I choose them, but I chose, I chose a scenario that wasn't good, and then on top of that, didn't have stuff buttoned up before I went into it. I made all of those choices, man. So I can't sit back and be mad at the child support system. I can't be mad. We know this. We know that it's stacked against us. Like, we know this, man. We know these things. You can't blame the court system when you made a bad choice of a woman to marry. Like you said, you made a choice to marry somebody for the the junk in the trunk. You made the choice because you wanted the hot chick. Guess what, brother? Hot chicks got problems too.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, the hotties, the baddies, all of them, they got issues too, right? And if you don't find somebody that is compatible in all the right ways, if you don't prioritize the right things and the right priority, then you don't get to blame the court system, because now you're getting divorced and she wants half.
Mm-hmm.
Where were you? Where was all that blame when it was time to do a prenup?
Right.
Where was all that blame when, I'm pretty sure you wasn't shooting 3-pointers when you made them babies. I'm pretty sure them were layups, right? You know what I'm saying? So don't act like it happened by mistake. You know what I'm saying? And especially you fellas out there that's even making babies, before you even get married. Dude, 18 years, on the 18th birthday, you find out what it is.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And so you don't get to, and I blamed a whole lot at different points in my life, and I just learned, man, I can't blame them, man. They got what they was getting to. I know some men who are getting, spousal support from their ex-wife. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I can't be mad. I can't be mad at the brother, and so we don't get to complain about certain things that had to do with consequences from our choices.
Yeah, your choices are your choices, and it's the acknowledging, like, taking accountability, taking responsibility, and learning from those choices. Like, I've been single my whole life because after 13 was my last relationship, and I realized I was the common denominator. I'm like, I need to work on myself. Granted, I didn't realize it would take this long, and now I'm kind of like, okay, slim pickings is not even the right term,
Mm-hmm.
but that's just the way it is. Like, I wanted to be the best potential partner I could be. And here's one thing that you have to realize, and this is kind of the double-edged sword, of when you take responsibility and ownership and accountability, you're hoping to find a partner that does that as well. And if you don't accept a partner who does that as well, or you don't actually delete the ones that don't, it's going to be a hard road, because there's got to be a double, both parties got to be dancing the same song. You both got to be taking accountability. You both got to be taking ownership and responsibility to make it the best relationship it can be. And that's the best way to have the best relationship, of communication, of love, of support, of all those dynamics that actually make a stable relationship. But you have to make those choices, as hard as they may be. Don't get booty blind. Don't just take whatever comes along. You got to actually vet them. They got to vet you. You got to meet the parents. You got to be the mom. You got to go through a year and a half getting past all the oxytocin, star-crossed lover syndrome, so that you can actually see the real person and see if that's somebody you can work with. And usually it's going to be somewhere in the middle of what you think you want. You don't want her too hot. You don't want her too smart. You don't want this or that, or whatever the thing is. We all have these dreams in our head of, this is the woman for me. Well, sometimes it's different than what you think, but the whole point is finding somebody who is on the same page with you. And unfortunately nowadays, you talk about slim pickings, it's hard to find people who are accountable for their actions, who don't have a victim mindset and aren't blaming the world for everything.
You got to have your priorities right, man. And they say you should go for a strong 7. And somebody with some, that ain't always, that's not on one end of the scale, not on the other, man. But, when you're making those choices, you got to make sure those priorities are right, especially in terms of women. Because guess what? If you're one of those guys out there that you're going to fall in love and get married because the sex is great.
Well, there's what you get.
Holla at me. Holla at me. There's an 800 number for you gonna need to write down now because there's gonna come a day.
1-800. Here comes child support.
There's gonna come a day where it ain't popping like it used to be. There's gonna come a day where man, you just a sniff will be okay, man. There's gonna come a day. At some point, I'm getting real close to this FCC line.
You're getting real tiptoeing right across it.
But you got to make sure that those priorities are right. Because again, when you make that wrong choice, man, that wrong choice will cost you, man. That wrong choice will cost you, and that's just big picture in life. You make choices. I tell my son, man, this is my verbatim advice to him: don't get locked up and don't get anybody knocked up, because those things, you just can't walk away from. You can't blame the court system when you find yourself in the court system.
Right.
When you find yourself in the judicial process, you can't blame the court system. Ain't nobody tell you to go do whatever that was that got you up in there. And so you can't say, the court system is slanted against this and against that and whatever. We got to be able to take some ownership of all of our choices that lead us into whatever. Speaking of leading us into.
Let's lead ourselves into a break.
Break. Mad Men of Masculinity, KLDC 1220 AM. We'll be right back. Bomb diggity. I'm getting real close. Ooh, I'm like, I'm walking right on the edge, man. A tightrope, man. A tightrope.
Tanner, better taking notes in there, young man.
Tanner's like, when we set Tanner up, man, we got to find him a strong 7.
Mm-hmm.
A strong what?
That can cook.
Would you say a strong 7 or like a strong 6.9?
That's the whole thing. He says 7. He says 7.
7. That's fair. I mean,
see, that's the difference between old men and young men. Because like I heard this analogy: if there was, 2 islands, and you were like in a little boat, or you capsized, and there's one closer island, but there's like a bunch of 5s, ugly kind of busted up ladies, and then a mile away there's an island full of Playboy bunnies, but there's a shark in between. Young man every time is gonna take his chance for the Playboy bunnies. Well, see,
Tanner, Tanner, a 5 will love you good. Man.
Yeah.
A 5 will love you good, boy. Oh, you come home, man. Your slipper's gonna be out there. You know what I'm saying? You come home, man, and man, oh, dude, a 5 is gonna love you good. A 5 is gonna say, hey, what can I do for you?
Yes.
But I mean, yeah. Now, if you can find you a 6.9, a 6.95, or a 7, that'll do all that, dude. Yeah, you got to,
because you don't really want
cuff that quick, man.
You don't really want a 9 or a 10.
You do not want a 9 or a 10.
That's
you do not want a 9 or a 10. Not even an 8.
No,
not even an 8, man.
Not for long term. I mean, you might want to go out on a date. You might want to have some hard candy, but that's a lot of work and a lot of because. Especially nowadays with social media,
dude. Oh man,
they get so much attention.
So yeah, man, you got to we talking about these choices, man. You don't want to be a victim to a 9 or a 10. A 9 or 10 will get you in victim mentality.
Get you stressed out.
Yeah,
you're like, what's she doing? Where's she at? What's going on?
No, I mean, if you find you a good 7, she'll say, "I'm sorry." She'll say, "Will you forgive me?" You find you a good 7, man. Oh man, like
I just got chills. I don't know when the last time I heard a woman say, "I made a mistake. I'm sorry."
Dude, I'm telling you, that's a 7. That's like so. The 7 is a new 10. They say like 50 is a new 40. 7 is a new 10 because a 7, man. I'm telling you, man, a 7 will
love you up.
Woo, you ain't no victim mentality in a 7. A 7's gonna own it. Yep. A 7 is gonna own her stuff.
See, this is why you tune in to the podcast, because you get all this behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah. you get all this ready. This is why you chime in.
Yeah.
Right, so
You ready?
Chime in. Let's finish this thing.
Welcome back.
We are back.
Welcome back.
Mad Men of Masculinity. Man, I'm telling you, y'all need to check us out, man. We on these breaks, man. You need to check out some of the live streams, YouTube, Facebook, all that kind of stuff, man. Because you get behind the scenes, man. Oh, we broke it down for Tanner up in here, man. I'm telling you.
6.95.
Ooh, how to make sure you get a woman that don't got victim mentality, man. Good one.
Good one.
A good one, like one of the ones you just sop up with a biscuit. Like you look forward to coming home. There's peace in a household with one of them.
Yes.
Because otherwise, man, you'd be a victim. And
Yeah.
you'd be blaming her. You'd be blaming this and that. She can be blaming you. There'd be a whole lot of blame. And when we started this whole thing, we started talking about, that victim mentality takes you down the road of your feelings, and you begin to follow your feelings. And then when you follow your feelings, ultimately it puts you as the one low on the seesaw, and the rest of the world is the one high on the seesaw. And then somehow you got to jump or do whatever you got to do, or jump off in order to get the one that's high down to the bottom. In other words, it ain't gonna be good. And so getting off of the victim mentality seesaw is important.
Yeah, and it's about looking in the mirror, taking accountability, acknowledging that, hey, I don't know everything. I mean, that's one of the things I think drives me most crazy about being human sometimes, is that all the dumb people who don't know everything think they know everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whatever I know is everything. And then all the smart people think they are dumb because they don't know everything. They already know how much they don't know. And so we have kind of this upside down world. And then we got all the victims. We're playing to the common denominator. We're playing to the lowest common denominator of, the dumb people and all the warning labels and all these things. Like, it used to be, you didn't have to have don't eat the wrapper. You didn't have to have all these extra warnings. So we're just keep dumbing down everybody and allowing the victims to win. At some point, we need to hold them accountable and say, hey, guess what? You made that choice. Yeah. Hey, guess what? That rock that hit your window, guess what? Driving is a dangerous thing. And these things happen, and that's just part of life. You chose to leave your house. You chose to live in Colorado, where they put sand and rocks and gravel down and mag chloride to eat your bumper. You chose to be here. Those are your choices that you need to take accountability for. But so many people now don't take any accountability. They're just a victim, and they want everybody else to cover the bill for them and for their poor choices. But life doesn't work that way. And if you want to have your power back, you want to have your own emotional stability, you want to have your own freedom, that comes from you being the leader in your life by taking accountability, responsibility, and alleviating the victim mindset.
What's funny is you say people don't take accountability for their victimhood. They also don't take accountability for their actions in terms of the consequences or the things that they do as a result of being a victim. A lot of people will, somebody might say that they were abused or something like that, and that's the reason they're in a gang, or they do drugs, or they do crime, or that's the reason, she's on OnlyFans because she's got daddy issues. Come on, man. At some point, people got to take accountability even for their actions beyond just being a victim. When you're a victim, and that doesn't give you the free reign, the blank check to just go do whatever you want to do and not have any consequences as a result of that aren't your fault.
Yeah, I feel bad for all the girls doing OnlyFans now, and even for the guys around them, because there's going to be a whole bunch of born again virgins coming up here soon, because they're going to get to a point and realize that wasn't it. Yeah, that wasn't a good choice. But instead of taking accountability and responsibility for it, they're going to have to change their name, delete as much of their internet history as they can, because there's that's out there forever.
That's forever.
The evidence is there.
Yeah, that's forever.
And those are not the best choices, especially when you want to have a good man later on.
And again, you can't. Who are you going to blame? Who are you going to blame at that point, right? Who are you going to blame for all the stuff you did? When if you got mommy wounds, guy, who you gonna blame at some point when you run through women left and right, and now you got a trail of tears behind you because of your choice. I'm talking I've been there, done that. Mm-hmm. I'm speaking to myself in that scenario.
You'll be looking at me,
dude. I'm looking at myself. Right, my camera, right, myself right here, man. And because we can't just continue the blame game as a result of the consequences, as a result of having a victim mentality.
And one thing that has been coming up for me, I'm just going to throw it out there because it's something I'm probably going to start doing here soon. getting off of social media, getting off of TV, and minimizing your outer influences. With so many outer influences nowadays that you don't even know what your thoughts are. So taking time to get back to yourself, get back out in nature, or just sit quietly and just allow those thoughts to go through your head, allow those thoughts to process and run, and listen and see and be the outside observer, and then decide for yourself, because you can change your own mind. Just because a thought is in there, I mean, your thoughts don't have to be true. Your emotions don't have to be valid. They don't have to be true. Like, you may feel a certain way, but just because you feel it doesn't mean it has to mean X, Y, and Z. You can decide to either change that emotion, to change that thought. You can decide to change your mind. And probably the best thing we all need to do, especially as guys nowadays, is to limit the outer influences of social media and TV and all those things, and get back to who we are. Because, I mean, I think about how much time I waste. I love movies. I love binging on the weekends after working all week. But I think of all the hours I waste and all the creativity I'm losing because I'm just consuming something, whether it's comedy, TV, whatever it is. I mean, we're just consuming things instead of producing things. And we as men need to be producers.
Which brings us right back to, again, I was hoping we get there, which brings us right back to where we kind of went in that first segment, which is having an outlet, having a healthy outlet where you can channel and funnel life through, which is reaffirming to who you are and to what you are as a person, as opposed to what the world says about you. Because the world, I think a lot of our culture is trying to produce victims, right? It's trying to produce people who are hurt or I'm offended. I'm triggered by that. So you can't do that. You know, I'm triggered. I saw somewhere somebody was talking about, you know, when the eclipse happened. Well, there's a certain group of people on this planet that can't look at the moon. So don't post any pictures of the eclipse. And I'm like, what kind of nonsense is that? Like, so I think part of our culture is trying to create victims and create people with sad stories and all this other kind of stuff, and have that be the driving force. You got to have positive outlets,
Positive outlook too,
to get a positive outlook. And to your point, social media doesn't do that very well. Social media guides us down the road of victimhood, guides us down the road of negativity. You know, very rarely does social media leave you fulfilled and uplifted after consuming it for some period of time.
Yeah,
kind of like the news. You know, it's like, you know, negativity drives the news, you know, ambulance chasers kind of stuff. And so we got to make sure we have positive people, positive activities, positive circles of people around us. We got to make sure, especially as men, that we have other positive men around us, men who can be there with you in the trenches, but also walk up the mountain and climb mountains with you. You got to have people around you in your circle that are going in the same direction that you want to go in, which is up, which is not living in the darkness of all the valleys of life.
Yeah, the whole reason that they want to make you a victim and to be in the victim mindset, because you're easily controllable, you're easily manipulated when you're not in your power, and your power comes with responsibility. It comes with accountability. And yeah, it sucks sometimes when you have to say, yeah, I did that. That was not cool. I have to take responsibility for that. I have to own that. I have to make reparations and you know, repay whatever debt I have now for my choices and my actions. But that's not what you get when you're in a victim mentality. What you get is it's always somebody else's fault, and then you just get in the victim triangle that we talked about before, and it's just this never-ending cycle of victimhood. And if you're in victim mentality, I guarantee you there's tons of victims around you, because misery loves company, and you all get to be victims together, and nobody take any responsibility. You want to have the life you want. You want to be the man you want to be. It's time to take accountability, responsibility. It's time to stop listening to all the victims and all the social media influencers that are trying to tell you it's daddy's fault, it's big government's fault, whatnot. All you have to do is educate yourself and know what's out there, and then make the proper choices. Know that there's danger in every choice. There's going to be some sort of accounting to whatever choices you make. So just make the best choices you can, but make sure you educate yourself. When you go into marriage blind, or you go in, you know, to relationships blind, that's why you get the results you get. And so you got to learn from those results. And hopefully, if you're smart, you can learn from old guys like us who have made those bad choices, and you can skip them, because we're hoping RJ will make good choices.
When you're a victim, it's easy to sell you stuff. When you're a victim, it's easy to convince you to spend some of your money, because, you know, victimhood is just kind of a negative space anyway. So I need to spend my way out of this thing. If somebody can convince you, if you're going through a divorce and a lawyer or a system can convince you that your ex is the enemy, and you're the victim to what they did to you and all this other kind of stuff, then guess what? You're going to spend a lot more money on that divorce.
Yep.
If you're a victim in our culture, health wise, we don't have a healthcare system. We got a sick care system, right? I mean, we don't put nearly as much money into healing, quote unquote, or medication and getting fixed as we do into healthy living, right? All the stuff that we should be doing on a daily basis to keep us out of a hospital. Once you get in a hospital, then we got you. Then I can give you all the meds. I can charge you per day. This doctor's going to charge you. This doctor, this nurse is going to charge you. Blah, blah, all this other kind of stuff. But when you're a victim, it's easy to control you. It's easy to manipulate you, and it's easy to sell you stuff. So you got to make sure you're surrounded by people in situations and circumstances, circles of existence that are not about being a victim.
Yeah, and if you have guys who will call you out when you get in victimhood, those are the guys you want to hang out with. Those are guys who actually care about you enough to say, hey, bro, you're being a victim. You're better than that. Let's do better than that. And guess what? It happens to all of us. It happened to me this weekend. And, you'll see the cycle start in your mind. And the idea is to get to a point where you see it starting to happen and you stop it.
Yeah.
You go, I'm not a victim. I'm going to take responsibility for this, how I'm feeling. I'm going to take a couple deep breaths. I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to go work out. I'm going to go do whatever I need to do to release this emotion and this energy in a healthy manner. And then I'm going to take my power back because it's incumbent upon me because I am the common denominator in my life.
Everything is not your fault.
It is your responsibility.
How you handle all the things that happen to you is absolutely your responsibility. If you are driving down the street and somebody runs a red light and T-bones you, that ain't your fault. And whatever the metaphor is that can go along with that in other areas of your life, how you respond to that accident, how you respond to that crash of life, how you respond to that thing that happened completely is your responsibility. If you get laid off from a job, laid off from a company, okay, maybe you didn't have any control over that, but you absolutely have responsibility for how you act in that moment. You have a responsibility for picking yourself up, dusting yourself off, getting that LinkedIn up tight, getting that resume tight, and getting out there and finding another job. I mean, that just because that happened, that doesn't mean that is defining who you are, and you're definitely not a victim to that thing. It happened. That goes back to it happened, didn't happen to you, it happened for you. Have that shift in that mentality and move forward.
Yeah, let's break down responsibility. Responsibility is the ability to respond. You want to be able to respond and not react. When you're in victim mindset, you're going to react. You're going to react out of anger. You're going to react out of fear. You're going to react out of judgment. And that's how you get into the worst negative outcomes. When you are able to stop, breathe, and respond. And to that analogy, if you got T-boned and reacted and shot the dude because he wrecked your car, well, now you're in a whole other butt of trouble, where if you could have taken a couple deep breaths, checked on that dude, made sure everybody was okay, and make sure, you follow the procedure. Now it's his fault. He's buying you a new car. I mean, it could work out in your favor, but when you react out of emotion, when you don't have the emotional stability, when you don't take the time to be responsible and have that ability to respond, that's how you get into a whole lot more mess and make the worst choices in life. So we just want you men to be responsible.
Madmen Mafia, we love you.
Love you.
Holla at your boys, madmenradio.com. Check us out, YouTube, Facebook, whatever podcast platform you listen to. Check us out, all that kind of stuff. Put some comments on there, man. You like us, you didn't like us, what you agree with, what you didn't agree with, all those kinds of things. We listen because we love you. We do this because we love you. And with that, Mad Men are out.